The following podcast is a Dear Media production.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Real Stuff podcast and an audience caller episode with a new friend of mine, Brittany, who wrote in with an extremely honest and detailed story about student loan debt and discovering student loan debt from her partner that he didn't even know was there. I don't think we've ever had an episode of this show before where someone has come on with their face and with their real name and shared numbers in this degree of detail. In this episode, Brittany shares exact salaries that she and her partner have made at various points in their career. She shares what their careers are. She talks us through what their savings were, what their debt was, exactly how much they spent on a house. I really loved this episode because it is kind of a true prime example of the conversations specifically surrounding money that I would love to have on this show with anyone who's willing to open up like this. So if there's anyone else out there who has a taboo financial situation or you have a crazy story surrounding money, please go to luciefink.com/apply and apply to be a guest on the show. I love having conversations with you guys, and I love putting faces to the names of people who tag me on social media week after week that you're watching the show. It means so much to me. If you like this episode, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Please give it a 5-star rating or review on Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching and it's meaningful to you and you find stories like this and real, raw, honest conversations like this to be powerful, please take a screenshot, pop it on your Instagram story, and give me a tag, and I will reshare it from my account. What I really loved about this episode, as you'll hear me get into with Brittany, is just the ultimate discussion about when it comes to things like debt and when we're talking about money, how there are multiple ways to look at it. And, some people definitely look at debt with the lens of let's just pay it off. Let's live scrappily for however many years we have to get that debt number down to zero. And then we'll sort of start fresh from there. And other people view it as more of let's live and enjoy our lives now, even with debt, and figure out how to pay that off in a smart way, but not really compromise on the important things to us now. And I think they're very different perspectives, and it's so interesting to have conversations where people sort of talk you through the psychology behind the decision they end up making in that department. So I know you guys are going to love this one. I thought it was so fruitful, and let's just get right into it today with our audience caller, Brittany. Hello, Brittany.
Hey, Lucie.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for coming on and for your incredibly honest submission and for your willingness to be here on camera with us. For people watching on YouTube, you can see Brittany is here sitting before us with this amazing story. So firstly, thank you for that. I also want to thank you for something else. As I've just been told, and as I think I remember from resharing your story, you are, I believe, a top 0.5% Real Stuff podcast listener as per your Spotify Wrapped this year. Is that correct?
That is correct. I wasn't sure if I should be proud or embarrassed about how much podcasts I listen to, but thanks for all you do. I really enjoy just hearing everyone's stories, and the honesty that you bring to this space is incredible. So
thank you. It means so much that there are people out there who, that must mean you've listened to literally every episode.
Yeah, like maybe sometimes I listen to ones that are like really insightful, and then I make my husband listen to them in the car on like parenting, things like that. So yes.
Wow, I'm so honored. And what a great use of the application form for the show to bring people onto the show who are actually avid listeners and in the audience every week. So I'm so happy to have you here. Your story was so unique, I think, because not only is it deeply personal, it's about money, which is one of the main topics I love diving into on the show. But of course, it's just about an obscenely large amount of money of debt. Before we even get to the punchline of the story of what happened, I would love for you to take us back to your relationship and to when you and your partner first met and when you guys were beginning your relationship. And I'd love to hear both how much you spoke about money with each other at that point, and also what each of your financial situations were like going into that relationship.
Yeah. So I met my husband 2018. So I was 26 years old. And I would say immediately off the bat, from the moment we met, we knew we were each other's person. Like I sort of hate the word soulmate, but I truly believe my husband is my soulmate. And it was just so evident from the second we met. We aligned on everything. We both had similar values, principles. And I mean, it was just no questions, right? So immediately we talked about everything. Money, our relationships, our families. It was very open and honest. And I mean, that's definitely a way that I show up in my life. My closest friends and family know, like, I'm always going to be honest with you. Sometimes I could probably be softened a little bit, but I will always show up and be honest. And I always appreciate that back in return, because I truly believe that's how you build authentic and the most valuable and long-lasting relationships with people. So that was, clear off the bat. We both showed up with student loan debt that we knew of. And I think that was probably communicated within the first couple months of dating. We actually both went to the same university, Drexel University, and I put myself through undergrad, college, and so I knew how expensive it was. My husband went to Drexel as well and did 5 years there in his undergrad. His program was a 5-year program, and then he also did law school there. So probably within like the first couple of weeks of dating, in my head, I'm sort of like, I wonder how much debt he has, because I had just gotten almost done with paying off. I had about $100,000 in student loan debt from college, and that was a really sort of traumatic time for me to have to pay that off. And that felt like a really large number. And so obviously that was always in the back of my mind. And I think quickly I learned that he had $200,000, what he thought was $200,000 of student loans that he was actively working to pay off. He had graduated, later than me because he did do law school. I did grad school while I was working full time. So we had a little bit of a different start of our career path. I had 5 years of working full time under my belt, 5 years of salary and building my 401k. And he was sort of just getting started off. So I would say that was a little bit of a difference, but he also had a law degree. So I was an interior designer. So like a little bit of a discrepancy in our salaries. There's a lot of different, I think, levels and scenarios you can talk about when it's when you talk about finances and our financial similarities and differences there.
So when we go back to your initial 100K of student loan debt and you saying that you put yourself through college, by that, do you mean you were working on campus and also took out loans and that your parents essentially were not able to financially contribute?
Yeah, my parents did help a little bit where they could. Right before I went to college, so right after I graduated high school, my parents did go through a divorce. And so I don't blame them for it at all. It was just really unfortunate timing and how everything worked out, where the resources that they had always planned to be available for me now were obviously going to houses, to bills, to this and that. And it was just a really hard time financially for my family. And so, it just resulted in having less resources available for me in college. So it was, I would say, like, when I think about my relationship with money and why the story of learning about my husband's debt was so triggering for me, it was because I think doing a lot of work in this on my own, I've realized how much money equaled security for me. And it was a really hard time in my life when my parents were going through a divorce. And we grew up with like the white picket fence, big house, like all the things. And then all of a sudden, everything just comes crashing down. And I moved 7 hours away from my family to go live in Philadelphia and was on my own financially and physically. And so I was working on campus, really any job I can get. I would be working at the front desk. I worked at University of Pennsylvania was next door. So I worked there, did internships, and just like, I hate the word hustle, but like really just truly hustled while friends were out like partying on a Thursday night. I would be home because I had to get up really early for work the next morning. And it was really hard. It was a really hard time.
It sounds hard, not only just because that is a hard situation, but also just comparatively to what you came from, and going off to college is such a hard time for anyone, you know, no matter what, let alone it's your first time fiscally feeling kind of insecure. So it totally makes sense. Just to hear a little bit about your 100K student loan debt that you were able to pay off. I know so many people graduate college in debt, and then obviously just by nature of how debt works, it's stacking up with your interest over time and it starts to feel insurmountable. To whatever degree you're comfortable, can you share what salary you had at the time that you were able to pay down $100,000 of debt, and kind of paint the picture of how were you living? Were you just saving a lot in one area? Were you not eating much food? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Great questions. So at the time I was making $40,000. That was my first job out of college.
Gosh.
I know. Yeah. I think back, and this was 2013. So I again, like, everything is perspective. And I was living in a city, Philadelphia. I think all those things are really important to talk about. location and time when you think about money and finances. And the reason I took this job, though, like everything, I'm a very strategic person. And so the reason I took this job, it was a job at the University of Pennsylvania, and it allowed me, first of all, it wasn't my career. I'm an interior designer and I focus on sustainability work. And so I was doing design and sustainability work at a University of Pennsylvania, major university. It was really great experience, first of all, but it also provided me with ability to get my master's degree for almost free from UPenn. And so in my head, I thought, okay, it's $40,000 plus the cost of tuition, because I always wanted to get my master's degree before starting a family, because I wanted, these were just things I wanted set up so that when I did have a family, I can really focus on that, right? So there was strategy there, but I lived, I would say, I don't like the word frugal either, but sometimes it's just not a great word. I was very creative. I think as a designer, I can bring creativity to a lot. So, I mean, I rode my bike to and from work, home from grad school late at night. I rode my bike everywhere to save money. I think just the way that I eat, I eat mostly vegetarian. So I'll just buy things at the grocery store. I would like a banana over berries. That's much less money and you still get fuel. Yeah, I would just get really creative around. I would invite friends over for dinner a lot because going out to dinner can be challenging. So having friends over, finding a balance between still having a life and staying connected with my community that didn't have the kind of debt that I had. So it would get hard from like a social perspective.
What about your living expenses? Was that covered by UPenn?
No, I paid, my rent at the time was $500, which is like a joke now. So I paid for that. And I mean, that was my major expense. So I didn't have a car. I lived in a city. I was single.
So I don't know if you will remember, the exact breakdown of it, but I like to look at someone's full spending plan and see, okay, the income is this much a month and the fixed costs, which would include your living expenses, your food, and whatever debt you're paying off are this much. And, how many years, I'm just trying to do the math on you're bringing $40K in, but you have to spend a decent amount to live. And then you're also somehow paying off $100,000 of loans.
Yeah. So I wasn't always making that amount, right? So I have always advocated for this has all like very much built me into my career that I'm in today and why I think it's so important to advocate for yourself in salary. So quickly I started making much more money than that. And when I finished my master's degree, I was able to leave that job and go somewhere else to make more money. It's hard to say because year by year, I think things change between salary, living arrangements, my personal priorities. When am I putting away to a 401k? When am I putting away my savings? I really look at it every year, even every month, and reevaluate all those different pots of money.
Yeah. Are you comfortable sharing what that salary level that you were able to get up to was?
Yes. I currently make with my bonus around $150,000 a year now.
Okay,
so
amazing.
Again, putting into perspective, it's been about a little over a decade since that I've been working and then living in New York City. I think it's important to also note yes, that feels like a good salary now. However, and I'm not saying it's not. And I'm very fortunate to make decent money, but it definitely goes less far than other regions.
Right. Okay. Well, first of all, congratulations on paying down all that debt on your own. And the fact that you did that can't be disentangled from the story we're about to get to and partially, relates to why this next part of the story was so difficult for you. You all know that I love exploring what it really means to get real. And just like many of you, as we kick off this new year, I'm focused on wellness, but I'm trying not to be focused on the TikTok fads or expensive detoxes, but rather those little things in daily life that actually make us feel good every day. And that's why I'm so excited to partner with Bayer Consumer Health this month to get real about wellness, because they are helping people cut through all of the clutter and the noise and focus on what really works. There is such a strong connection between our physical and our mental health. In fact, according to a new survey from Bayer Consumer Health, 77% of people agree that when one feels off, like your mental health, then the other usually does too, like your physical health. And for me, something as simple as not being able to breathe through my nose can completely throw everything off. My sleep, my energy, even my mood feels out of whack. One product that I've personally used for years and have been recommended by many doctors is Afrin, especially this time of year when congestion hits hard. You guys remember all of my sinus things that I had going on last year. Afrin gives me real relief so that I can actually breathe through my nose and feel like myself again. This is not a wellness gimmick. It's just a product that literally does exactly what it says it's going to do. Bayer's trusted portfolio, which includes things like Afrin, Mirafiber, One a Day, and Alka-Seltzer Plus, these offer practical, proven support for everyday needs, whether it's digestive support, nutritional support, nasal congestion, and cold relief. These are the MVP products that doctors continue to recommend that will help us feel our best and stay focused on our wellness journeys. For me, getting real about wellness has actually meant simplifying my routine. So I don't need 10 different wacky supplements or a new trend to try every week. I just need to focus on the basic pillars of wellness and then have products on hand that actually do what they say they're going to do. That's exactly what Bayer delivers. Tell us about your husband, who I guess at the time he was your boyfriend.
Yes. Yep.
So tell us about his financial situation. I know you said he had a couple $100,000 of debt and he was actively working on paying it off.
Mm-hmm.
Did he have a debt payoff plan? And talk a little bit about your just mindset financially about marrying someone or being in a hopefully long-term committed relationship with someone, and how you were thinking about the dual debt that you guys had and what that would lead to.
Yeah. I don't think he had much of a payoff plan other than the minimum payments. Honestly, I hope I'm not misspeaking. But I think it was pretty much payoff, like automatic payments, right? Like set it and forget it sort of thing. And like, it'll all be fine. He just graduated from his law school, got his law degree. Like, I think there's something really wonderful about that and feeling really good about yourself, and which is totally valid, and he should feel amazing about that. But I think there's sort of like a high riding on that, if that makes sense, of like, I'm going to be a lawyer, so everything is going to be great, and just set it and forget it with the debt. And I think that's the way a society has built up, at least my generation, is like the higher degree you get, the more successful you'll be. And it's like no one's really looking at the literal cost of that, right? With the $200,000 of debt, I mean, that is something that I really struggled with since the moment that I found out about that. At this point, we were dating. We weren't engaged yet, but we had talked about our future, and we had planned to move in together, probably within a year of dating. And, it was pretty obvious we were going to get married. And so I think that when I found out about the $200,000 initially, it was like, I'm fully in and committed to this. However, we need to talk about it. Like, we need to be actively talking about this monthly, coming up with a better plan, because I'm not comfortable with just this minimum payment. Like, this isn't going to work for me, right? And so I didn't just accept the debt, and he didn't expect that of me either. We really, and it was probably like the first real true test in our relationship of like having to work together to deal with something really hard. And, I never like to sound overly optimistic, but sometimes it feels like the debt was actually really helpful for setting us up in our marriage, because it forced us to really get honest and raw with each other. And we would sit down and have these discussions, and it would be hard. And like, we would cry and we would have arguments. And like, I want other people to know, like, that's okay. Like, it's okay to unpack the hard stuff. And I used to tell him, like, it's not always going to be fun conversations. Like, we have to have the hard conversations. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be upset. It's okay. But I felt like he didn't want to have to open up that can of worms, or like, we shouldn't be talking about things that make us upset, right? Like, that's not life. And so I in a way, like, feel like the debt really cracked us open and made our relationship so strong from the beginning. I like to like tackle things really heads on, and he can be a little bit more of a relaxed person, which is what makes us such a good pair. And I really am grateful for that. He's just such like a silly, happy-go-lucky person, and I love that about him. But sometimes you need to buckle down and focus on the hard stuff too. So by setting a monthly connect, it allowed me, because I think what I was doing before then is like every day I would bring it up to him, like, oh, your debt. And he's like, I can't talk about this every single day. Like, I understand you need to talk about it. I'm a problem solver and I understand you want to solve this problem, but like, I can't talk about it every single day. Like, there has to be a better balance. And that's when we had set up, like, it may have even been weekly at the beginning or bi-weekly, like some frequency that we both agreed on. And we would try to hold our thoughts and comments for that space and sit down. And that would be like an open space. And you could bring anything that you needed to that table, obviously respectfully and gently with each other. But that was really helpful for us.
Just so people are oriented, at the point in your relationship when he tells you about this $200,000, is he still in law school or does he have a salary yet?
Yes. I met him after he had we both graduated from like our grad schools and law schools before we met. And so he was working full time. I was working full time.
You know, obviously this is more about him. So I understand if he isn't comfortable with you sharing his numbers, but are you open to sharing what his law salary is? I think people are so curious about, after you spend all that money on law school, how much realistically can you make as a lawyer?
So here's like the really funny part. He's actually not a practicing lawyer. And so I know.
I feel like that's actually how it happens for a lot of people who go through law school.
He never practiced law. And like, we definitely had to work through that, right? Because I'm like over here, like hustling my ass off. And I have a lot of feelings around that. I do think like him getting his law degree, I mean, it's part of the reason when I first met him, I didn't like fall in love with him because he had a law degree, but his hard work ethic and like motivation to continuously excel himself and his career from the very beginning was something that really drew me to him. So I do think there's wonderful things there. But are you wondering what he makes his salary now?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to get there. I think that is where we can kind of go after we hear about the next step of the story. But for now, just the salary that he had at that time.
Oh, at that time, I think it was like $70,000. So I think our combined salary when we met was probably definitely less than like my own individual salary. No.
Got it.
So it wasn't great.
You find out about this $200K debt and then you guys are working through it. And kudos to you, especially you, but both of you, for having the hard conversations and coming up with what it sounds like a better, stronger debt payoff plan for this $200K as opposed to just paying the minimum each month, which would, you know, undoubtedly draw out the process for, who knows, 30 years.
30 years, yeah.
Did you guys iron out a plan before you found out about the rest of the debt? Did you have what seemed like a manageable debt payoff plan for that first chunk?
Yeah. Again, we tend to take things year by year because, there's just so much that changes and it's hard to say like, we're going to do this amount every year. I mean, we've had so much unforeseen stuff come up, like life happens. So, but I would say for that year at that time where we were, yes, we had a plan.
Okay. Now the big part of the story.
Yep.
Take us to the day or the moment when you discovered the rest of this debt and kind of walk us through just exactly how it unfolded from your perspective.
Yeah. So like I said before, I'm a problem solver. And so when I found out about the $200,000, I became very hyper focused on it, but agreed to not talk about it every day, right? So I would spend a lot of time on my own, like researching and Googling. Again, I had been through this. At this point, I didn't pay off my debt fully yet. So I still had my debt. Now I had my partner's debt. And I was just like so hyper focused on making this better for us. So one Sunday night, I'll never forget, it was like a Sunday night in April 2019. And we hadn't moved in together yet, but we were talking about it. My lease was up in 2 months. And so we were going to be moving in together. I was laying in bed on my phone, researching like ways that you can you can consolidate loans. I'm constantly looking at better interest rates, this and that. And I still to this day have no idea what I did. Like, I don't want to revisit this because it was so triggering, but I inputted some amount of information of my now husband's, into some website somewhere on my phone. And again, like, we were not engaged, not married, not living together. I definitely did not know I don't even know his social security number now. So like, I don't know what information I inputted, but I pulled up every single one of his loans. And if you don't have student loans and you're not familiar, like a federal loan, for example, can be broken up by tens, maybe even hundreds of different line items of different loans. You have one for 5,000, one for 2,000, one for 50,000, one for 70,000. They all have different interest rates. So I pull up this slew of like all of these different loans, and I don't remember if it had the total or I just figured it out. Like the total was now over $400,000. And I'm just like, what? Like, what the fuck? Sorry,
Is this
can we
public
discuss?
info? Yes, of course you can curse.
I don't know. Like I feel like maybe I should know at this point because I am trying to build a platform to help others with this and like get more engaged and aware of like all of this, how this all works. But I have not gone back to the day. Like I don't remember what level of information aside from his birthday and his full name that I would have known to plug in.
So you're sitting there late at night looking at this article, whatever, and you see, you plug in the information and you see $400,000 total. And, when I got your submission, I read it a few times because I was trying to understand if this was a story of financial infidelity, of him having this debt that he didn't tell you about, or if it was him not even knowing and you having to come to him and tell him, dude, you're actually double in debt from what you think you are.
Yeah, it was the latter. Okay. It was the latter. My husband is definitely not. As far as I know, and I do fully trust my husband, like we are 100% honest with each other. I think we've always been that way. No, he did not know about the debt. He did not know that he had that much debt. We had a lot of conversations around why that was and why that shouldn't have happened, but he just was not aware of it.
As a person, I know you described him as kind of happy-go-lucky and more, carefree, but from a organizational standpoint of someone who's getting papers or you're getting messages from the government or your school or the loan department or whatever you're getting, how did this actually logistically happen?
When you're 18 and you go to college, the fact that you are approved for more money to go to college at 18 with no credit score than you can get approved for with a full-time job for a mortgage is just the most insane thing to me. Yeah. And we are given no education. I think people that have been given education probably come from upbringings where money is talked about and there's healthy relationships with money. And I think that, you're just not educated. And so to take out money, you're filling out FAFSAs, you're signing off on loans, right? Like someone, whoever is maybe co-signing that loan with you, whoever it is helping you secure this money, right? Someone is just telling you, sign here, sign there. You're 18. You don't know what you're doing. You're being told by society that you need to go to college. You need to get the best degree you can because this is how you are going to like best contribute to society. At least, again, that was like my experience of my upbringing. And I think my husband had the same. And so, he definitely signed these forms, right? Like he signed off this loans, but I don't think that he ever looked at the numbers. And I guess somewhere he was told your numbers are $200,000 and he just never checked. And we've had a lot of conversations around how that wasn't okay. But again, his financial upbringing is, I think we all have different relationships with money and it's not so important from where he came from, but like the fact that we are now fully aligned and we are very transparent. We have a strategy that we've built together so that this would never happen again is really important.
Totally. And it cannot even be, you can't even explain strongly enough how much a person's past with money and, as you were saying, the family they were brought up in, the way their parents talked to them about money, the way people around them talked about money, that is a direct line to at least how they're going to be initially in adulthood. But as you're saying, there's always room for people to change their money mindset and change the way they approach and think about and manage their money. So it's incredible to see the transformation from both of you. We didn't get too much into your husband's upbringing, but you're right. Like people at age 18 have no knowledge of the financial landscape. And not only what you're saying, where they're told that to be a contributing member of society, they need to get this degree. They're also told this is going to be the only way to earn more money. So it's basically just like a catch-22. If I want to make any money, they think I have to go down this route. So many people in our society are just initially set up in a sunken pit. You know, many people get to the end of their working lives and haven't paid it off. So much to get into because you guys have such an incredible story, and I'm sure people can learn so much from whatever it is you did. But before we get there, we're back in this dark room. $400,000 of debt is staring you in the face. How do you bring this number to your boyfriend at the time? And like, what do you even say to a person to tell them you have double the debt that you thought? And can you just tell us about that conversation and then what ensued after that?
I just called him. I think I just called him and I was like, Grant, like your debt is $400,000. Like in that moment, like, it's just like, rip the Band-Aid off. Just like, this is a situation. I mean, still to this day, that was like the hardest day of my life. And that was the hardest news I ever had to find out. Like, to be the one to open that up and have to be the one to tell my husband, that definitely, that stirred up a lot of emotions for me.
Sorry, was he your husband at this point?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Husband now, but at the time, boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to be the one to have to do that was really hard. And again, like, create a lot of challenges, I think, for us that we have since worked through. But yeah, it was a really hard day.
Can you take us on a journey through your head as far as you see this number and any fears that were coming up, any questions you were asking yourself? Were there moments where you were questioning your relationship? And then, you know, I know you mentioned a little in your form, some guilt you felt about some feelings you were having. So just take us through the emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, this felt like my third time now going through this in a way, mine, and then the initial amount of debt that I found out about my partner, and then this additional amount. And it was sort of like, I'm not sure if I can do this again. And so I called him up and I told him, this is the situation. And I said, I really think that I need some time to process this on my own. Like, can I take 2 weeks? Like, I need to like not like really be in much communication. Like, I'm not going to like disappear. Like, you can text me, like whatever, but like, I just need some space. Like, I need us to cancel our plans we have this weekend. And I just need a little space right now. Like, I need to process this on my own. And of course he said, like, whatever you need to do. I know that was a really hard time for him. Obviously in his head, he's thinking like, my girlfriend I'm about to move in with and propose to is going to leave me and like my life is over. And I tried to be as gentle as I could about it, but I had to also protect myself. And like, I don't think it's healthy to go into a marriage knowing something is going to cause like a lifetime of resentment. Like, that wouldn't be fair to him either. And I needed to make sure that I could realistically show up to this relationship and like one day move on from this. And so I did that. I took 2 weeks, and yeah, I did write in mentioning the amount of guilt I took those 2 weeks to have for me, right? And I'm looking back, I'm really proud of myself for doing that. It was really scary for me too, just like my husband, thinking I'm going to lose this person that I love if I don't feel like I can commit to this financial situation that's being thrown at me now.
So you guys weren't living together yet?
We were about to move in together. We were like looking at apartments to rent.
So you're saying you took 2 weeks basically of just no contact?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like, yeah, canceled plans, like no text, no, yeah. To an extent. Like, again, I didn't like disappear. I was like, text me if you need, but like, I just needed a little space. We would talk all the time. Like, we'd be on the phone till 11:30 at night, every night before we moved in together. I mean, we were like, just that, like, it's sort of annoying, like just like attached immediately couple. And so I took those 2 weeks process. And yeah, I just remember feeling a lot of guilt and shame. And I like to talk things out. I remember going to therapy and telling my therapist, and like her jaw just hit the floor. And I'm like, that is not the right reaction. Like, no. I get it. It's a large number. Like, can you like try to like help me process this? And I would try talking to friends. Then that would have the opposite reaction of like, it's just money. Like, are you really gonna like throw away someone as amazing as Grant to like, because of money? Like, I felt very judged. I think it's really important that we have spaces where you can process this all without judgment. And I didn't feel like I had that at the time. And that was really hard. So anyway, fast forward, I eventually decide like, I'm going to do this. I'm all in. And from there, I again, like, I'm a problem solver. I'm like, go get it. Right. And I call him up. I say, I'm in, but I'm going to buy us a house to live in. And I like had never bought a house before. I had no idea what I was doing. And like within 3 weeks, I think I met with a realtor, got pre-approved, and bought a house.
Can we backtrack on something?
Yeah.
And I'm sure I want you to explain it because I'm sure your explanation is going to be valid.
Yeah.
From my standpoint, I'm hearing, wow, I'm actually in further debt than I thought I was. Let me go buy a house. Let me make a big purchase and probably get into more debt. But maybe with a purpose behind like land ownership. So just give us the details.
Okay, that's actually so interesting. I've never thought about that before. My thought process was that I was going to invest my money, like, and make a smart financial move. Also, at the time, I was able to purchase a house and get a 3-bedroom row home in Philly with a mortgage of about $1,000 a month. You would never find that.
Yes.
Renting.
Never.
And so my thought process was, I can do this. Like, I have the money saved and I can do this, and I can get us a cheaper mortgage than we would get from renting. And that way I can pay the mortgage fully and my husband can focus on his debt. Like, that was my thought process.
So at this point, you had paid off your $100,000 and you had savings and money. And how much did this house in Philly cost?
To clarify, I still had some of my debt. At this point, and the way that I think about debt is once you get to a low, I think with student loan debt, it's so important to talk about scale. So when I say like a low number in debt, to me, that's like $15,000, $20,000, something that's not accruing a lot of interest anymore. So at this point, I maybe had $15,000, $20,000 left, all like 3% interest rates, right? So like that's a low risk loan to me. Sorry, what was your second question?
That's kind of making me think in another direction because I think it would clarify for people. Some people have debt. Like some people have almost as much debt or more or less debt than they actually have in cash, but they're intentionally not paying it off because they have the money in investments or they're doing other things with it. So clearly you had your, maybe $15,000 to $20,000 of debt at that point, but you also had savings and cash and other, liquid capital, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yes.
And so, are you comfortable sharing like ratio wise how much money you had from your like wealth perspective versus the debt?
When I talk about my wealth back then, I'm just talking about what I had in savings. Like I don't look at my 401k. I don't look at money that I would never touch. Mm-hmm. I probably had maybe $70,000 in savings, and maybe I put down $50,000 with closing costs. I think the house was maybe $250,000. This was a while ago, 2019. And so it was really
so you put down like, I don't know, 70% of your liquid cash towards the house, leaving you with like $20,000 of savings. And then you still have the $15,000 to $20,000 of student loan debt.
Yes.
Okay. I can't, I also own a house. So I am a fan of buying a house if it's the right choice for someone. But can you take us through just like how that all played out financially and if you feel that was financially the right choice?
Yeah, I definitely think it was. Again, it allowed us to really focus on having a comfortable space. We loved our house. We since sold it, so that's not this house now. We since moved to Jersey City. This was back when we were in Philadelphia. I'm also like really proud to say I bought a house on my own. Like there's to be totally honest, like there's a pride perspective that I feel like I try to like push away, but I think it's okay to say like, I'm really proud that I achieved that. I think the overall story, and I know we'll kind of get maybe more into this, but like, you can't make everything about the debt, like about the student loan debt. If I can't live my whole life for just paying it off, which is why I made these choices to buy a house. Like it was more than just, it was something that I guess I wanted to do too, right? Like own a house. That felt really cool. I think finding out about my husband's debt when I did forced me to think about it. And then once I thought about it, I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, this is actually really cool. And this feels really good for me. So I do think it was a good decision. Again, we were able to, COVID hit right after that. So we were able to refinance, get that like COVID interest rate. And the mortgage was $1,100. That's with taxes and everything, like $1,100 a month. You can't, at least where we live, and even in Philly now, like you can't live for that low of an expense. So I don't regret that decision at
I feel like so much of wellness culture right now is about taking things to the extreme, either cutting everything out or doing an intense cleanse or following some crazy protocol that honestly is not sustainable for everyday life. And the older I get, the more I realize that what actually works for me is just consistent, gentle support. Peak is a brand that I've known and loved for such a long time. Their Sun Goddess matcha is one of my personal favorites, a go-to almost every day in this house. And if you've been feeling like you need some liver support, I want you to listen to this. Your liver is kind of the master control center of your body. It affects your energy, your digestion, your hormones, even your mood. And between stress, travel, and different types of food, your liver is constantly working overtime. So Peak's liver detox protocol supports your body in a way that actually feels good. This is a simple 2-part daily routine. So the first is Electric Turmeric 2, which is the activator. And this turmeric blend supports your liver's natural detox pathways and it helps keep inflammation balanced. And it's made in a way that's actually absorbable. The second part is called La Ginger, which is the flusher. This one promotes circulation, it soothes digestion, it helps your body actually move things out, not just stir them up. So the turmeric activates your body's detox pathways, and then the ginger helps flush everything through, which allows for smoother energy throughout the day, less bloating, and clearer digestion. If you want to try this for yourself, you can get 20% off by going to peaklife.com/realstuff. That's PIQUE life.com/realstuff. You can check out their liver detox, and also that Sun Goddess matcha is not to be missed. Start building a foundation for sustained everyday wellness with Peak. Here's a question I have that's maybe a little in the weeds and specific to your situation, but I would love to hear your rationale behind it. My understanding, when someone has, let's say you have $15,000 of student loan debt and you're choosing to not pay it off in one fell swoop. My understanding is the reason behind that is because the $15,000 that you could otherwise put towards the debt, if you were to take that and put it in investments in another way, it could actually be compounding and growing. And so it actually saves you money at the end of the day to just pay the interest. Even though you're paying more over time, you're earning more than you're paying.
Yes.
But in your scenario where you were just saying at this point in time, you just had $70,000 or something in cash, in savings, and you were not investing or anything like that. What's the rationale at that stage behind not just saying, this $15,000 that I could pay to the debt, it's not growing. It's just sitting in my savings. So let me just take $15,000, pay off my debt. That way I'm not paying more over time. And now I have kind of this like empty, clean slate with $50,000 left, which is still more than you would have after you buy the house, and not buy a house and just like start from here and start building from here.
Yeah. Great questions. I think the first thing, and I think this is really important to keep in mind from a mindset, is yes, what you just explained of like, you should always, and I put always in quotes because I don't actually believe this. You should always be, if you can make more money on your interest that you're gaining in an account, and that interest that you're getting is higher than the interest that you're paying on your debt, then choosing that option is always the best option,
right,
financially speaking. But it's not just about our finances, right? Like we also need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, that we're treating ourselves kindly, that we're providing ourselves with a house and a lifestyle that works. And so at the time, we wanted to move in together and we wanted to love the space that we're in, and we weren't going to find that for the same budget from renting. And that is why I decided to buy a house, because it allowed us to focus on our monthly payments in a way where, again, our mortgage was less than our rent. The other thing too is at that point, like I said before, my loans that I had left were such a low interest rate, like 3% or so. And then if you recall, during COVID, at this point I paid off all my private loans. And so I think that's important to note as well. These were my federal loans I had left. And there's been a lot of noise in the news around federal loans. There's just so many different pathways you can go, and it's all a risk. Like, can you get them forgiven or this or that? So there was still some hope I had, like maybe I can get these forgiven, or COVID hit and interest paused. I was like back then just not paying off my federal loans quicker than I had to for a numerous of different strategies and reasons. And so for those reasons, I put my money into my house thinking this hopefully will be a good investment. And it was. When we sold the house, I made $50,000 on it in 4 years. Like, that's not, for a $250,000 house, like, that's not bad, right? So it definitely, in my opinion, was a good decision all around.
Yeah, and I think you are right that people's finances and what's going on in their lives, it cannot be boiled down to just numbers on a spreadsheet, because people have happiness and mental health to think about, and living conditions, and all of that plays into it. And I think the valuable part of what you guys were doing was actually talking about all of that and analyzing everything. And something's got to give. You have to make compromises somewhere, but all this is maybe a moot point, because it sounds like it was a successful investment. You made $50,000 on it. You felt like it was a good decision. And let's go to you guys being at this apartment or at this house that you just bought, and you made the decision to buy it, and you're living there, and you're obviously now at this point starting to figure out the plan behind paying off this $400,000.
Yeah.
Can you just take us from kind of then through where you are now, as far as like both of your incomes hopefully going up, what your current day salaries look like, and just how you're living today as far as balancing all that stuff we talked about? And now you live in Jersey City. It seems like you're renting from what you said.
Yep.
So What are all the costs? What are you paying? What are you putting towards the debt? And what is the plan for when it's all going to be paid off?
Yeah. So just a transition from like getting to Philly to here. We bought the house. We were so happy for a while. We got engaged. We had a long engagement, a 2-year engagement. A lot of these decisions were built around finances. Also, we got engaged like third week of COVID. And I also then got really sick as well. So like there was a lot of decisions made into that kind of like life throws at you. But we had a long engagement, got married in 2022. And I felt like in that time of being in Philly and in our house, we made a lot of decisions around the money. And I started to learn what really pushed my buttons and what compromises were worth my happiness. And same for my husband, right? So for example, we got engaged, we planned our wedding, and a big way that we were saving money is like, we have always had a hard time paying other people to do things that we know that we could do on our own. So for our wedding, we took on way too much. Like, we made our own wedding cake for our 160 person wedding. Like,
oh my gosh.
Do not recommend that to anybody on this call. Like, my husband did the bulk of it. I have to give him so much credit. But like the night before my wedding, I'm sitting there frosting cakes. And like most brides, like maybe not that, it was like 2 nights before. Like, I should have been like getting pampered. And it just resulted in, we had other stuff. We had a Jewish wedding. We built our own chuppah. The day of was just, and I feel so bad saying this because so many people put in so much time and effort to be there and celebrate. It was a beautiful day. But like for me personally, it just wasn't enjoyable because I had just bitten off way too much. And I didn't ask for help because weddings are really expensive and we funded most of ours. So it was situations like that, and reflecting after is like, I can't keep like putting everything into the debt. Like, it was just a good time to process and learn like what was worth it and what wasn't. After we got married, our neighborhood started to get really like uncomfortable to live in, I would say. There was a few stints of sexual assault and gun violence. At the same time, my husband also just took a new job. He wasn't unhappy at his previous, but they just offered him a lot more money, right? So like, we were just making all these decisions around like staying in Philly, even though we were starting to feel really uncomfortable. A lot of our friends had left. We didn't really have community. It started to become scary to open my front door in broad daylight. Like, it wasn't acceptable living situations, but we stayed because, and I hear so many people saying this now, like, my interest rate is 2%. I'm stuck. I can't leave. And like, that is not true. And every time someone says that, I correct them now, because so much of this is mindset and how you talk to yourself around money. Like, you are not, some people are stuck. And like, I want to say I am really fortunate to have had the resources and the capability and the financial resources to sell my house and make that decision eventually to leave. I do want to say, like, not everybody has those resources, but a lot of people that feel like they're stuck, I just want them to know, like, you're maybe not stuck. You don't have to make every decision based off of like, well, I have a 2% interest rate. Well, if you're miserable, it doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. Because my husband and I, it took a huge toll. I mean, we were both like, our mental health was plummeting. We were fighting and arguing a lot. We were just so unhappy. This was all the first year of our marriage. Yeah, he took that new job. Our neighborhood got really uncomfortable and we were just like miserable. And after about a year, by like the following spring after our wedding, one day I just woke up and I was like, I'm selling this house. Like, I cannot stay in this house for your debt. Like, I cannot do this anymore. Like, I am miserable. You're miserable. We have to go. Like, we have to go anywhere. Within 2 weeks, we put the house up on the market. We got 3 offers. My husband got a new job in New York. And we just like quite literally sold all of our shit. Put so much of our stuff in my in-laws' house. I'm so grateful for that. And we just left everything and moved to Jersey City. And we now live in a 1-bedroom apartment that costs over $4,000 a month, which sounds totally crazy on paper. I know, but we have never been happier in our lives. And it just goes to show that like the things that you think you want and need in this life sometimes aren't even it. Like I think buying that house, going back to like the discussion of me when I was 18 and financial security, my parents divorcing, like my childhood home also got sold when I was 16, which is like before the story even started, but I hadn't had a sense of home in a really long time. And it's just now clicking to me because I feel like we kind of got into that a lot. Like, why did I make that decision? I think a sense of security was like a really big part of that. It didn't actually give me that. And I've never felt more at home than like, yeah, my small 1-bedroom apartment that we now live in with a dog and our almost 12-month-old baby. And yeah, it's just like a beautiful life that we're living here. So
to fill everyone in, you now have a baby.
Yes.
Tell us, I mean, first and foremost, are you guys all room sharing in that 1 bedroom?
Yeah. Yep.
And so as far as paying $4,000 as opposed to $1,000, but obviously now you have more cash from the sale of the house. Can you tell us financially, you said you're now making about $150,000 a year. Where is your husband at and where is the debt at?
Yeah. I'm pulling up like my handy spreadsheets I have. We have everything
Pulling
organized.
up the spreadsheets.
So my husband now makes, again, this is with bonus, around $220,000 a year. I'm at, again, $150,000. So again, we're very fortunate. But again, we have both advocated so hard for ourselves and taken new jobs, like paid a lot of attention to get ourselves to that place. And as I'm sure a lot of people in that scenario do, but I just want to make that clear. And the debt now is at $150,000. The other thing to point out too is like, while that might not sound like a whole lot that we've paid off, just remember none of this includes interest, right? So to date, we've probably spent over, I think it's somewhere like $600,000+ in debt between the two of us. The numbers that everyone's hearing is not the interest that we're paying as well. So yeah, I feel like when I say these numbers, I know I should feel prouder, but like it doesn't even sound like that much to me because it's not inclusive of everything we've paid. Each year we spend probably around $75,000 on the debt.
I mean, it sounds like a lot to me to go from 400 to 100 something. That's, 3/4 of the way there. So
plus my 100. So it was really starting at 500.
Yeah, you guys have done such an incredible job on this debt payoff. And I mean, you're just so set up for success now. You guys as a couple are bringing in, about $350,000 a year. For a couple making that kind of money, spending $4,000 in rent is actually a very low number of rent. Yes. I think people don't think about income that way, making it a percentage, coming up with a percentage of your actual income and thinking about how much should living costs be. And I don't know off the top of my head, but there is a number that's like, this is reasonably what you should be paying in your living expenses based on your income. I actually feel like you guys, that number could go up for you, especially, I don't know, for a couple that is, I know you're very happy where you are, but you guys, I don't know if you're going to expand your family and.
Yes. My husband says we are not allowed to until we get a second bedroom. And I said, but we have very high ceilings. Can't we just like build up?
But just as far as your family goes, as you guys continue to expand, I think one of the things people forget about is that, in some ways it's a catch-22 because it's like as you earn more income, if you just keep spending more, then you're never going to be like, quote, doing better than you were before. And you don't want to be in this rat race or be kind of like keeping up with the Joneses where making more money doesn't actually change your lifestyle. But in some ways, incrementally, earning more money and being a high earning couple and making $350,000 a year jointly, that should mean that you guys are able to, I don't know if the word is treat yourselves or live appropriately according to your means. Like it kind of goes back to what you were saying, where life isn't about just living beneath your means for, just to pay off debt. But
Yeah.
you guys are high earners and you guys are just doing such a great job. This is such an inspiring story. How are you guys, just so people who are paying debt right now, who are thinking about this and maybe they're earning a high amount or not, but they're trying to figure out how much to put towards the debt. What percentage of your yearly take home are you putting towards debt?
I don't really look at percentages. And I don't want to throw out a number because I think, and that was you were saying too about like the percentage of income that people spend on their rent. Like percentages never felt relevant to me because nothing ever takes into consideration the student loan debt and the payments, right? So it's hard for me to say because there's so many factors that go into someone's life. Like I personally have had medical things. I've had cancer twice. And so that like the years that I've had that and have had to pay off medical bills and this and that, like I can't do as much for the student loan debt those years. And that's okay. Like it is okay to have other things come up. When we got married, now we have our son, Hudson, and he's just wonderful. His daycare is obviously like an extra. So like things need to ebb and flow. And I know that's not like a very straightforward answer to your question. I feel like if I put a number out there and people aren't doing it, this is coming from my experience of going through this. Like I always just felt so much shame when I wasn't like, oh, I'm not meeting that percentage or I'm not meeting this timeline. And so I think everyone, like it needs to be a personalized goal that needs to ebb and flow month by month or year by year.
Just to backtrack on that, you paid off $100,000 of your own debt, working on $400,000 of your partner's debt, had cancer twice, and managed the medical bills that come with that.
Yeah, I did have help from my parents the first time. I'm very grateful. I was 22 the first time. So like, yes, really grateful for that and just want to be transparent.
Oh my gosh, even just being in the situation of having the debt and feeling the weight of the debt, I think everyone's kind of worst nightmare in that situation is, but what if something medical comes up and then there's more to deal with and you were in that situation. So I'm so happy you said that you feel proud of yourself because you should. And I cannot thank you enough for writing in and coming on and being so open about literally every number. I don't think we've had another guest on the show who has shared to this degree all openness about the salaries and the debt. Everything is just so meaningful to us. And I know the audience is going to love it and relate to it. If you are speaking to people out there who are in a similar situation or who just realize like they feel that they have this insurmountable debt ahead of them, you wrote to come onto the show, I'm assuming to share a message and to, tell people something. So, and you also mentioned you're building something to help with this. So tell us your advice for everyone and also what you're working on.
Yeah. So I really wanted to share my story because going through it myself and now with my husband, I felt so incredibly alone in this. Money is such a taboo topic. And so people don't talk about it. And when people don't talk about things, you feel like you're the only one going through it. And I remember when I would bring up my student loan debt to people, the response I would get from others was like, oh, I have debt too. Like, I get it. And it's like, you come to find out their debt is equal to the interest I pay this year. And it's like, you don't get it. And that's okay. Like, it's not a comparative situation, but the scale is not the same. And I also feel like there's so many financial experts and financial resources out there that talk about debt in such an unrelatable and unrealistic way to my situation and probably a lot of other people out there, where it's like, follow these 5 tips to pay off your debt in a year, or, and I won't name names, but other, resources out there that just say like debt is the enemy and it's the worst thing. And they put this like level of shame over debt. If you have debt, like you are bad, like that is bad. You have failed. And it's like, nobody needs that, because there's so many people that had the same exact education as me and my husband, the same school, the same year, graduated with us, and they had no debt. And that's only because of they had help and we didn't have as much help. We shouldn't feel ashamed for that, right? Like we didn't do anything wrong there. So Anyway, that brings me to, I am currently building a platform, my company Be Loan Wise, where I am working to build community around this topic and help bring others together to help share best practices and be able to really think through not only the financial aspects of debt, but the emotional and the well-being aspects, because no one should have to live beneath their means, as you said before, and sacrifice so much for their debt. It's also okay to have things that you're not going to sacrifice, because at the end of the day, your happiness it's valid. Like, you need to remain a sense of self and sense of happiness and be able to live a fulfilling and authentic life for yourself.
Absolutely. And you mentioned having a college plan already in place for your child.
Yes. Our son has a 529 that was started like literally after I gave birth in the hospital. I forget when you get the Social Security card. You need this. So I'm like, Grant, start Hudson's 529. And, he's like, this is ridiculous. We'll do it when we get home. But yes, it's very important for us to set up our kids.
It's amazing. We will put all the links to this platform that you're building down in the show notes if people want to check it out. And just thank you so much, Brittany, for coming on. This was amazing. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks, Lucie.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Real Stuff podcast. If you're liking the show, please head over to Apple or Spotify and leave us a written review. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment down below and join in the conversation. And if you're feeling called to be a guest on the show, visit luciefink.com/apply and tell us your story. Thank you so much, as always, for sharing your time and attention with us, and we will see you next time on the Real Stuff podcast.
Please note that this episode may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products and services. Individuals on the show may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to in this episode.